The Final Supper, Chapter 1.
For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings.
Scene 2, Act 3, Richard II, 6:27 AS. The stones of the castle to the southeast of the highlands were white, and the interior walls were decorated with a great many tapestries of the history of the lairds of the region, from King Dumnall I, leading into the stories of his son Ringen, then to his grandson Dumnall. None of them, since Dumnall I, were expected to achieve the rank of High King. The castle stood tall, on a rise with the large family standard fluttering defiantly in the wind above the towers to either side of the gates, displaying their pride in their recently gotten position. Within the castle walls, the floors were adorned with silver and crimson carpets, with the emblem of a silver falcon at the center of them, with candlesticks lit all throughout the castle. No less opulent was the recently renovated royal chapel, with stained glass windows, filling the chamber with the light of a myriad vivid colors, and an altar at the front. The altar was cast from stone, yet far more ostentatious now than before Dumnall's coronation. The benches were built of the finest redwood that could be found, having been seized and transported there from Sigane. The death of Maelmartin had left a void open to many a pretender, especially since the heir, Ketil, had been abroad negotiating a new pact with Britia. Yet the one who proceeded to grasp the throne and scepter was none other than Dumnall III. Wiser than his predecessor, he had opted for a more peaceful solution rather than turning to the axe to solve the problem represented by those with a better claim. This had not resolved anything at all, though, as rebellion in the south, in the west, and in the north flared, it seemed, every few months. This weighed on the aged king, just as another rebellion would spark to life, and Ringen would insist on the command. He would allow him to lead the armies and squash the revolt.
Why, dear brother Freyr, must squabbling still infest the land? The people prayed for peace after Maelmartin, yet still it is but a distant dream. Nothing seems to cool the tempers, the mind games, and the blades of all those who live within my kingdom. All I wished for was unity, especially between Ringen and I, and yet...
Old King Dumnall spoke with utter misery in his voice. This old bearded man with wrinkles on his face had what could only be described as rings under his eyes. He was dressed finely in regal wear of silk and the greatest of royal colors, purple, that designated his rank. Next to him was a druid, in his simple green robes representative of the thistle of the goddess Scotia. He was listening intently, without judgment. The crown of his head was bald, though not old. He felt it. He sighed wearily in spite of only being a little past 40. He waited, and was rewarded for his patience, with Dumnall continuing on miserably.
Family threatening each other, shouting and cursing one another. They cannot be within the same castle without plotting the death of one another. This is what it means to be king. I should never have allowed Ringen to convince me to take the throne.
Are there other matters that weigh upon your soul, Highness? I am always here to listen to thy concerns and heartbreaks.
The druid asked of the king.
Not at present, my friend. I have other matters to attend to. Thank you for listening to this foolish old man's somber complaints. My sons have requested I speak to them soon.
Looking down at the ground, he appeared older than ever at that moment.
I pray it is not as dreadful this time.
Chapter 2. At the opposite end of the keep, there on the second floor, 4 young men awaited. The eldest was pacing vigorously back and forth the length and breadth of his bedchambers. To one side was his large straw bed, with a table on one side of it with a pair of chairs, while on the other side of it was another pair of redwood chairs. The stone floor beneath the table and chairs was covered in a crimson and white carpet with gold trimmings, the family falcon at the center of it. Next to the eldest of the men present was the stone chimney, where a large fire roared and crackled as fiercely as a lion. The man, muttering to himself, was noteworthy for his brown hair, blazing blue eyes, and his mighty build, which resembled that which his father had once had. Dressed in a red tunic, made from the finest wool in the realm, and the family falcon embroidered into the livery, with black trousers and a sword girded to his belt, he bore the appearance of a man not to be trifled with. The second to eldest of the brothers was sitting on one of the chairs, the one by the open windows with their black curtains, enjoying the late autumn breeze. Tapping his finger on his knee, he studied his brother with dark chestnut eyes inherited from their mother. This brother was dressed in greener colors to those of his brother. His dark brown eyes flashed with annoyance.
Nickel, King Can you stop and sit down? You are making my head spin. Father will be done with his absolver soon.
The eldest turned suddenly to his younger brother.
Nay, am I to continue to be made a mockery of, David? Father must pay heed to all concerns of the most dishonorable of betrayals and broken oaths.
Aye, but this is not the first time he has made excuses. We need to continue with a calm head. It is queer that this is the matter he is stubborn with, yet he is willing to let our dear uncle always have his way.
David retorted, icier than the coldest of wintry days. He was as angry as his brother. However, he had managed to retain a cool head, and there was a growing irritation in his voice, as if to hold in the last vestiges of his rage. The third of the brothers was leaning against the wall near to the bed. His own hair was the color of a rusty sword, and his own brown eyes had little rust in their expression.
If Father shan't hear our pleas, then we approach the matter ourselves,
he stated as if it were a simple fact. This won him a nod from David, and served to calm Neokul a little. The youngest in the group, who was sitting with them, rose up to his feet, hitherto silent, and dressed all in black, blue eyes on the flames. His hand tugging at his beard as he studied them, an impassive expression on his face, which lit up the moment the door cracked open and creaked over to allow their father entry. At this time, it was not he, though, who spoke first, but the man next to him, the one who had leaned back against the stone wall between the bed and the door.
Father, at last. We must discuss the matter.
The brown-haired young man spoke up as the old man sighed as he approached them. He walked as if the entire castle was to collapse upon him.
Aye, Raybert, I know what this is about, and the answer continues to be nay. It would cause trouble with your uncle, Ringian. Perhaps when he returns, we may discuss the matter we can.
Dumna was cut off by David this time, who is typically the most fiery of the brothers as he lost what little patience he had.
When he returns, I pray he dies at the front. Then the matter shall be solved with peace. Father, Nickel has endured the humiliation and taunts of our cousins, and the jeers of many lairds, and the airs of more mayors throughout every week of your ill-begotten reign. And you wish to deny a proper resolution for the insults your beloved brother has committed against not just him, but you as well? Nay. We demand resolution. We demand justice.
The man shook with rage, shooting up from his seat and breathing deeply.
I agree with David, Father. This insult that slattern has inflicted upon our brother needs to be rectified, and if not, we shall see to it.
The red-haired man replied with uncharacteristic heat.
Nawilius, peace. We are family. There is no need for aggressive action. A peaceful way to resolve the matter must be found rather than resorting to demanding reparations from Ringian in such a tone, for he shall undoubtedly refuse if you approach him in that manner.
Then what is the solution? We have waited long enough, and this slattern continues to mock the oaths she swore to Neokul.
His tone was harsh, and silence fell in the room, with the old king looking away, weary already. This had been the nature of his reign ever since it was found that his brother Ringan had taken Neokul's wife as a mistress. He had sent away his brother with the armies to attack Strathclaird when it was found that the king of that land had seized Ringan's youngest son, which upset his sons, but he hoped their tempers might cool until the other man's return.
Peace, my sons, peace. I have given you my reasons for why we cannot simply request an annulment of your marriage to her.
He tried to explain, but Neokul would not be silenced again.
First, you allow me to be cuckolded. Then you would deny me the right to lead the armies in battle to prove myself. Am I to become a woman over all these insults? I should have known that the same questions would fall on deaf ears.
The man stomped away to the door, unimpressed by his father's answer. He turned to the remaining sons, who were no less angered. He turned first to Maulios, opening his mouth and sighing.
My good daughter also seeks reparations for the slaying of her brother. Ringian has requested reparation be made to her.
You shall say to her, nay. She shall not get one piece of silver. I slew that man to recover lost honor, and I would have slain him 1,000, nay, 1,000,000 times again, if only to avenge my brother's honor for the crime of aiding the adultery of that harlot and your brother. Thy Tanist and son has been humiliated, yet you choose the treacherous snake and that adulteress over him?
He shouted, leaping up to follow his brother, with David quick to follow also.
I should have known that nothing would come of this. I should not have left my lands, wife, and daughters for this waste of breath. and time.
Each insult was a blow to Domhnall's heart. He turned at last to the youngest of his sons, his most beloved of sons, the only one who had remained by his seat despite standing up at his entry.
Father, hostilities between us and the Macringans have gotten out of hand. Peace in the family is nearing its end. You cannot let Ringen decide the terms to us, your sons, else you shall lose us all.
He recalled the conversations with his nephews, which were equally vexing. They wanted reparations for their friend, the Laird of Balcaran, whom Malleus slew in his vengeance of Neocal's honor. In his opinion, his nephews, Podrick, Domhnall, and Duib, had nothing to do with the matter and should have never involved themselves. But the murder of the Laird and the insult to their father had caused them to wish to have Neocal and Malleus repay them and to have all four of his sons apologize to them and their father for what they called wrongful accusations. As for his brother Ringen, he refused to acknowledge the wrong. Any strong head of the family would have forced Ringen to apologize and banish the girl. And then there was Aina. She was the common factor, but she was married to his son. An annulment could bring down untold shame upon the family, and this would make them look weak in the face of the Mormaers. Ruling was so very tiresome, Domhnall thought to himself, as his own eyes turned now to the flames. He should have never let Ringen talk him into taking the throne.